Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Again, welcome to our Sabbath school. We're studying Baptist Covenant Theology, and we are on our 21st lecture, third part of the Noahic Covenant. So just a review of what we have studied about this covenant. Deacon H, can you turn to the next slide? All right, thank you. It's losing its connection. All right, so just a review. Yeah, all right. So when we mentioned that the Noahic covenant is firstly a covenant in continuation. God made a covenant with Noah so that, and the entire mankind, so that the entire creation would continue. Okay, we mentioned that in this point, we can say also that that was a new creation. Why? Because God repeated some of His words that He has given to Adam. Like, for example, be fruitful and multiply. He also said that to Noah. So there's a new creation, and when there's a new creation, there is a new commission. So God basically echoed what He told Adam. Wala talaga, brother. It's not working. Deacon H, ikaw na lang, ha? Thank you. All right, so balik tayo, Deacon H. Please, doon sa left. Sobra. All right. Secondly, we said that this is a covenant for all humanity. So we talked about who the parties are in this covenant, right? And it's not just Noah, it's not just his family, but the entire population on this earth, right? So thirdly, we said also that the Noahic covenant is a covenant of preservation, that God has given this to all mankind so that He would preserve life on earth and also earth itself. Okay, the reason why that God hasn't yet destroyed the entire earth is because He promised all through Noah that He will not destroy the earth with another flood. Thank you. Okay, sige. Tingnan natin kung gagana. Yan, salamat. All right. Okay. So, balik tayo sa All right. So we mentioned also that the Noahic covenant is a common cursed kingdom of common grace. That was the effect of the Noahic covenant. We'll talk more about that in our study this afternoon. When we say that we now live in a common cursed kingdom of common grace, medyo mahaba yung terminology, no? But I hope we understand what this means. We'll enumerate lang what it means, no? Firstly, we're saying that we all live in a common cursed kingdom. Okay, lahat po tayo ay nakatira sa isang mundo na sinumpa ng Panginoon. Okay, we all live in a common cursed kingdom. That's what Paul said in Romans chapter 8, verses 20 to 21. For the creation was subjected to futility. Not willingly, creation did not want to be subjected to futility, to a curse, but because of Him, ultimately, who subjected it? It was God who subjected it. He allowed the subjection to futility of creation. Of course, the one who did it was Adam. The one who tempted Adam was Satan. In hope that the creation itself will be set free, so it tells us here, Paul tells us that the creation now currently is under a bondage to corruption and needed to be free. The whole creation needs to be liberated from its bondage to corruption. And we know, of course, that only Christ is able to liberate, to free the entire creation. Okay? And obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. So basically, this is what Paul tells us, that we all live in this kind of earth. Okay? A common cursed kingdom. And while God does preserve life on earth and earth, as we have mentioned in the past weeks, the curse is evident. Alam natin that it's still going on. We still have the curse here on earth. It's evident. Why? Because life continues to fleet away. There's still death, right? Of course, there's still sin. But obviously, what we can all see and affirm, death is still here. Okay? Life continues to fleet away. In fact, man's lifespan significantly dropped. Of course, there's death after the curse, after the fall. And then when the flood happens, if you look at the biblical records, Genesis chapter 5 and some of the genealogies in Genesis, you would see that the lifespan of man significantly dropped as well after the flood. Of course, that's the effect of sin. That's also the effect of the flood, because it's a cataclysmic event that it affected the entire creation. And of course, we live on earth. And so the earth was so affected by the flood in a way that it affected our health. It affects our lifespan. Okay? We see here, thanks to Answers in Genesis, they have this kind of graph. We see the lifespan from Adam, 930 years. And then their son Seth, 912, up to Noah, 950. The oldest one was Methuselah, 969 years old. In fact, before Methuselah died, that's when the flood came. Okay? So that's the lifespan before the flood. Now, what happened after the flood? Okay? Shem, 600 years old. Arphaxad, 438. And then we come to Abraham, 175 years old. Okay? Sobrang bagsak. Right? Now, how about now? Right? How about now? Some say, statistics would say, na around 60 to 70. No? Sobrang baba na ngayon. Okay? So that's the lifespan after the flood. Of course, the curse is evident because we're not just looking at the lifespan of humanity, but also the animals. Right? Animals do get extinct. May mga na-extinct po talaga mga hayop. Right? You've probably heard of dodo. Right? Si dodo, wala na siya ngayon, unfortunately. Right? And that's a woolly mammoth. Okay? There were a lot of fossils that were found, of these animals. Obviously, they have become extinct already. It's the effect of course, sin. Okay? So we can really say that the curse is still evident. Okay? So yung point natin, we all live in this cursed kingdom. You know what else are extinct? You know what else are extinct? Dinosaurs. Dinosaurs. Yes. Dinosaurs. Yay! Dinosaurs, right? That's from the family of Brontosaurus, Brachiosaurus, right? Triceratops. There are a lot of dinosaurs under the family of Ceratopians. Kasama na doon of course, ang Triceratops, right? Napakadami. Pterodactyl, right? In fact, if you look at the Bible, it says somewhere in Isaiah, fiery serpents. It was said that it could be these flying reptile animals, no? Marami pa si Littlefoot. Kung familiar kayo kay Littlefoot, right? Yung napaghahalata yung mga panahon. Diba? Kung hindi man, probably Tyrannosaurus as well, right? And also, marami pang ibang dinosaurs, right? So, did dinosaurs exist? Oh, definitely. So, segue lang po muna tayo, no? Sa flood. I think may relasyon ito pagdating sa usaping flood, no? Yung usaping dinosaurs being extinct. So, segue lamang, yes, they existed. In fact, they were created on day 6. Okay? Day 6, because it says in Genesis chapter 1, verses 24 to 25, let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, and creeping things, and beasts of the earth, according to their kinds. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth. Okay? It may include lions, of course, yes, but also it did include the bigger ones. The dinosaurs. Of course, they were not called dinosaurs at that time yet. The term dinosaurs were coined at around 1800s. Okay, so that's why you wouldn't find the word dino or dinosaur in the Bible. Okay, so they were also created on day 6. And of course, if you are a young earth creationist, when we say young earth creationist, that you would believe that we live in a very young earth. Around 6,000 years old, contrary to the many claims that our Earth is a million-year-old Earth. No. Okay? Why? Because when they found fossils of dinosaurs, they actually found soft tissues in the fossils. Okay? Yes. Indeed. So, to be specific, si Mary Schweizer ang nakahanap nito. Isa siyang paleontologist. Okay? The soft tissues, it tells us that these dinosaurs were not from from million years ago. Okay? They were created on day 6. Also, they were plant eaters before the fall. In fact, everyone, lahat ay plant eaters before the fall. Okay, of course, some of them, nung mga after the fall, ay naging carnivores. Some also remained plant eaters. Okay, it says there, Genesis chapter 1, verses 29 to 30, to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. Okay? Not only that, some were in Noah's Ark, some were not. And of course, those who were not in the Noah's Ark perished. Remember, only 2 animals of every kind lamang ang pinasok ni Noah. Hindi kailangan ni Noah ng, okay, I need a pit bull, I need a chihuahua. No, he needed 2 dogs. And then the rest, of course, nag-develop na lang through time. Okay? So you just need, for example, specific triceratops, and then another one, a long-necked one with a partner. So, ganun lang. So yes, kasya po sila sa Noah's Ark. Kung yun po yung tanong natin. Okay? Kasya po sila. 3 po ang deck. There were 3 decks in the Noah's Ark. No, napakalaki po niyan. It's 300 cubits long, 510 feet. Okay? 50 cubits wide and 30 cubits high, 50 feet. Okay? Parang ganyan po siya. Hindi po yung usual na nakikita ninyo na ganito sa mga cartoons. Hindi po talaga kasya ang dinosaurs dyan. Ito po, no, the real ark had the same capacity as 522 railroad stock cars. So yes, sa providensya ng Panginoon, in His providence, kasya po yan sila. Okay? And also, since merong mga nasa ark, it just tells us that they existed even after the flood. Okay? In fact, the account of Job tells us that there were dinosaurs maybe in his time. For example, in Job chapter 40, behold, behemoth, which I made as I made you, as I made you. I made you on the creation week. I also made them in the creation week. Okay? He eats grass like an ox. So, hindi carnivore, no? Behold, his strength in his loins and his power in the muscles of his belly. He makes his tail stiff like a cedar. Puno yun. Kasing kapal at laki ng puno ang kanyang tail. Okay? The sinews of his thighs are knit together. His bones are tubes of bronze. His limbs like bars of iron. Okay? Not only that, in Job chapter 41, verse 1, when God was telling Job how sovereign he is, that he is the creator of all, can you draw out Leviathan with a fish hook or press down his tongue with a cord? Di mo kaya, Job. Okay? So God is, he's mentioning very, very big animals here. Okay? Of course, how did they survive the flood? They were inside the flood. Okay? We see some accounts, for example, of a Greek historian, Herodotus, a famous one. Sabi niya, there is a place in Arabia not far from the town of Buto where I went to learn about the winged serpents. So, possibly, sabi ni Jason Lyle sa kanyang study of the dinosaurs in the Bible, he said, possibly Herodotus was referring to pterodactyls. Okay? Winged serpents. When I arrived there, I saw innumerable bones and backbones of serpents, many heaps of backbones, great and small, and even smaller. The serpents are like water snakes. Their wings are not feathered, but very like the wings of a bat. Okay? Pink Power Ranger, pterodactyl. Okay? Not only that, they became extinct as time progressed. Okay? Of course, we don't see them anymore. But of course, we cannot deny that there were big animals. Now, what is the biggest mammal? The what? The blue whale. Right? So, laki nun. Ibig sabihin, there existed many such animals also. Sabi ni Jason Lyle, and he highly appreciate his study. No, he's a scientist, theologian, Jason Lyle. He said, lots of things have gone extinct. It's not just the dinosaurs. Woolly mammoths are not around anymore. Why do things go extinct? Lots of reasons. There could be a famine. There could be a disease that comes through and wipes them out. There could be an animal that comes and hunts them, or it could be human beings that hunted them to extinction. Hindi niya sinabi na there could be a big asteroid or a big meteor that hit the earth and then tsaka pa lang nabuhay ang mga tao. He also said, today there are endangered species programs because we have animals today that are on the verge of extinction. And if we're not careful, they would go extinct. And I think we should give a certain amount of protection to those. We are supposed to take care of the world that God has put us in charge of. He is referring to the Noahic covenant here. Right? We must be good stewards of the creation of God. He also said, but ultimately, the reason why we do not have dinosaurs is because of sin. If Adam had not sinned, we'd still have dinosaurs. They'd still be vegetarian. They'd still be peaceful. So we can use dinosaurs as a segue into the gospel message. Okay? When we do our street evangelism, do you like dinosaurs? Baka naman maging ganun po tayo. I mean, randomly, very random. Oh, you have a dinosaur in your shirt. Did you know? But good try, no? Sixthly, fossils of dinosaurs have been found. So this just shows us that they indeed existed. Okay? Again, sabi ni Jason Lyle, the dinosaur fossils that we find, almost all of them, are buried in flood sediments. Okay? Kumbaga, the paleontologists, of course, they are experts in their field. They have identified such dinosaur fossils that they are buried in rocks that come from flood, na matagal na nakabaon sa baha. So they've identified that. Those dinosaur fossils, most of them we find are from the flood year. So maraming namatay. A lot of them died. A lot of animals died during the flood. Of course, some of them were inside the ark. Also, I recommend this book if you want to know more about dinosaurs, the dinosaurs and creation. He has a reformed view of what creation is. Si Donald DeYoung, he said the fossils showed creative design and that fossils resulted from burial in the Genesis flood. Okay? So the point here is this. Babalik lang po sa point natin. Alis na tayo sa dinosaurs. Sin explains why we don't have such animals anymore. Okay? Dinosaurs. So again, we all live in a common cursed kingdom. Secondly, we all benefit from God's common grace. Again, a common cursed kingdom of common grace. We still live in that world. Tayo, all human beings, whether you are a believer of God or not, we all benefit from the common grace of God, thanks to His covenant with Noah and all mankind. So given that man is the apex of creation, we can say that this is the most beautiful creation of God is man. Man was the last creature that He created on day 6. Okay? By the way, when I say man, included na po ang woman doon, ha? Okay? So man and woman po ang ibig kong sabihin. Okay? Man is the apex of creation, not even the earth, not even the animals, not even the plants or trees. It's humanity. Okay? So man primarily then benefits from God's creation. In fact, when God created the world, it started by being a deep water, yun muna, chaos and void, it says in Genesis chapter 1. It's uninhabitable. He created then the expanse, the lights of the expanse that pertains to the stars, the sun, right? Now, take note, what if God, then after that, He created man? Do you think man will live? Wala pa nga land, right? And so God created the air, the waters, the land, and then after that, did He immediately create man? Hindi din. The earth would still be uninhabitable without food, without green plants, right? He created the green plants, He created animals for the enjoyment, just so that the humanity would be able to exercise His dominion over all creation. So He created everything, and then once everything is settled, boom, humanity. That's the perfect time to create human beings so that they can live. So ibig sabihin, everything else, even the sun, was created for the benefit of the apex of creation. It's still, ganun pa din ngayon, no? We still benefit from God's common grace. Now, in fact, the Noahic covenant benefits man. Okay? God's preservation of earth, who benefits? It's man. He preserves the earth by continuously raining, R-A-I-N, rain, pouring rain, so that we have water to drink. Right? He continues to use the sun as well for us to live. It benefits us. It preserves life and society. And so, it is legitimate also to use creation, the materials of God's natural creation, in order to serve the good and the welfare of man. Okay? We must utilize properly God's creation for our benefit. Okay? And man can utilize creation in order to yield products that can serve man's lawful, and I say lawful, again, not unlawful, lawful convenience. Okay? Hindi we shouldn't degrade into cannibalism, into brutality, no, into such unlawful thing. But God has given us His creation for us to subdue. This is what subdue meant. Okay, we can use the materials of the natural creation for our benefit. Okay, so the point here is that if it comes to a choice between human good and other creatures, priority is to be given to human beings. Okay? Kasi ito po ang apex of creation. If it comes to that. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that it's bad to love your pets, to love your animals. Oh, please do. Common grace yan ng Panginoon that God has given you so that you would feel the love, you would feel the care, you'd be able to exercise responsibility also. In fact, you're called to be stewards of the creation of God. So that's good. However, if mas mataas ang tingin natin sa other creation kaysa sa tao, doon may problema. Okay? Also, again, I already mentioned this, we are all called to be good stewards of God's creation. This is our responsibility. And when I say stewardship, it is the rule over a certain domain that is exercised on behalf of another, capital A. God has given humanity that dominion. Of course, we can trace that back from Adam. He echoed it to Noah. It means that all of us are given the responsibility to subdue and have such dominion, to be stewards of God's creation. Kanya to, steward lamang tayo. Okay? For example, Joseph was made a steward in Genesis chapter 39, verses 4 to 5. Right? Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him, and he made him overseer of his house, Potiphar, and put him in charge of all that he had. Who owns everything? It's still his boss, his master. But he made Joseph an overseer. So in the same way, ganun din tayo sa creation ng Panginoon. Because God is the sovereign ruler and He still owns all creation, man's stewardship must be in imitation of God. Okay? Taking care of His creation. So the point here is that giving dominion to human beings is not a surrender of God's sovereignty. Okay? Stewardship lamang ang ating gagawin. We have an example on how to treat creation. We look to God. Okay? So, this means also that man should not exploit the creation of God for his own selfish purposes alone. Okay? So the point, so man must have proper care for God's creation. We mentioned this a while ago. So the Noahic covenant then makes humanity as central agents of God's care over His earthly creation, which is currently cursed due to sin. Okay? The Noahic covenant binds us, in fact, to be good stewards of the creation of God, knowing that in the same covenant He promised that He will preserve the life here. It doesn't mean that we will be preserved, that we will have eternal life here on earth, preserved in a sense that society will continue, right? Creation will continue. And in that same covenant, He said that He will preserve our platform, the earth. He will preserve the many lights in the expanse to give strength, to enable us. No, syempre, kailangan natin ng sun, kailangan natin ang moon, no? Kailangan natin lahat ng creation ng Panginoon, ginagamit ito ng Panginoon for our preservation. Okay? So, that ends our Noahic covenant, the third part. But let me give you again this simple graph na lagi ko naman pinapakita. Again, God made a covenant with Adam, and we call that the covenant of works. And yet, Adam violated, transgressed that covenant, and that we call that the fall. No, he disobeyed the commands of God, and yet God did not erase Adam nor this earth. No, He did not destroy it immediately. In fact, creation still continued. up until today. But right after Adam, after many years, he flooded the earth. No? He flooded the earth. Again, a reminder na under-cursed ang mundong ito because of sin. That's the reason why God flooded the earth is because of sin, because of wickedness. And that wickedness was a result of the fall. Okay, so as creation continues, nagko-continue din ang curse. And nung fall, God promised, after the fall, God promised that He would preserve the earth. So again, the whole creation is governed by two. First, the curse as a result of the covenant of works. We are governed by that curse. Secondly, we are governed by the Noahic covenant, by God's preservation. So there's a curse. We deserve to be destroyed, and yet another covenant is here that preserves us. So we live in that common cursed kingdom, and at the same time, God preserves common grace. Okay? May common grace sa atin. So we are still under the kingdom of creation, and there are two covenants, the covenant of works and the Noahic covenant. So next week, we will have a break from this series. Pastor Josh Gurango will teach on singing. Next week yon. And then a week after that, si Brother John will teach naman on the qualifications of deacons. And then after that, Pastor Josh uli will teach the second part of his lecture about singing. And then after that, Brother Glenn will teach naman on the duties of deacons. After that, we're going back to our series, Covenant Theology. And the next lecture, pagbalik natin, it's about the Noahic deluge and the pagan flood accounts. Okay? The many pagan flood accounts that were written centuries before Moses wrote Genesis 6 to 9. Okay, so we'll compare and we'll see what that study would tell us. So again, siguro very, very brief recap before we end. I want to open this Q&A also for the previous lectures that we had. We studied the methodology that we are applying in our studies. Naalala niyo ba yon? Ano yung mga methods na ginagawa natin? Una ay, anong klaseng theology? Systematic theology? Hindi naman tatawag ko sis. Sabi ko sabihin, systematic theology. Secondly, ano yung isang method? Biblical theology. Panalo po si pakibigay po yung So, pinag-aralan din natin covenantal hermeneutics, di ba? Naalala niyo ba? So, when we present the text, we explain it in a way na may ina-apply tayong hermeneutic. Do you remember what analogy? Ano yung dalawang analogy? Analogy of scripture tsaka analogy of faith. Analogy of scripture is that you use other scripture texts to explain a text. Analogy of faith is that you use framework or you use your theology that of course comes also from the Bible, and you use that to explain the text. Analogy of faith. Okay? Ano pa? Typology. Naalala niyo ba? I think ilang beses natin to na-apply throughout our study. Right? Typology. Sino yung type mo? Hindi. Sino yung type pala? Sorry. Sino yung? Baka bigla kayo sumagot. Wait lang. Huwag ko nang sasagot. So type, right? Yung mga elements in the Old Testament, majority of them are types, and they point to the antitype, who is Jesus Christ, right? And then we study the nature of covenants. What do you see in the covenant? There's death, there's promise, there's obligations, there are sanctions, right? So nature of covenants yan. And then we study the kingdom of creation, yung mga principles of authority, You remember, the authority came from Genesis chapter 1 pa lang, principle of Sabbath, ano pa ba yun? Principle of work, right? Principle of community, right? If you remember that. And then the covenant of works. Ito ay pinakamabilis nating lecture, covenant of works, right? Mga 11 lectures, right? And then we studied the Noahic covenant. And then when we study the covenant of works, tinignan natin yung Garden of Eden, and we said that it is a type of an antitype. What is its antitype? The church, the dwelling place of God, right? The Garden of Eden was a dwelling place. Also now, the church is the dwelling place of God, right? Ano pa? Adam's commission na type din pala ang commission ni Adam na be fruitful and multiply. Ano antitype nito sa New Testament, if you remember? The Great Commission, right? Go therefore and go therefore and make disciples of all nations. Yeah. Kung siya sabi, go therefore and multiply. The two trees, right? Do you remember what these two trees are? They are, in fact, sacraments. Amen. Meron ba tayong ano? So sacraments, right? Because so the tree of life is a sacrament, a visible what? Promise. And then the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was a visible threat. Amen. Oh, praise God, ha? Okay to. Okay pala mag-quiz, ano? We also looked at the fourfold state of man. Do you remember the first one? The state of innocence. Si Glenn po yung next. State of, what's next? State of sin. State of, yung sunod? Grace. And then lastly, state of glory. So kung tayo ay mga Christians ngayon, if we have been redeemed by God, we are in what state? State of grace. It's in our confession, yes. And then the fall of man, we studied that, the temptations of Satan, and also proto-evangelium, right? Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, and also the cursed state. God's curse to Satan, he will be subdued, right? Remember? And then his curse to Adam, sluggishness, pagiging sluggard, and also is a woman taking the authority. So gusto ko lang siyang idaanan lahat kasi I'd like to open this question and answer sa buong series natin if you have questions. Yes.
Low sound check. As when we get to heaven, parang are we going to eat plants again? Hindi na ba tayo kakain ng meat? Parang ganun.
Right, that's a great question. In Revelation, it says that there's still the tree of life. There's the reappearance of the tree of life in the book of Revelation, I think chapter 22 or 21. I think 22. But we can say that it's more of a symbolism that we have been granted the privilege of eating the fruit. Pero of course, kasi when we say tree of life, it represents eternal life. So honestly, we don't know. We don't specifically know what will happen. And that's good. That's the mystery. No? But yes, it says in Revelation that we will be granted to eat, but I take that as of course, symbolism of our life in eternity. So, kamakailan lang may nagtanong sa akin if there's a stairs, kung mayroong hagdanan sa new heaven and new earth. I'm not gonna say kung sino 'yon. Pero may nagtanong din, no? So, ang sagot ko din, that's a good question, right? Kasi new heaven and new earth, how can we get to heaven? Kasi the two realms will be combined. Well, to answer, we don't know. We don't know yet. If you want to ask me if I want to find out, of course I want to find out. Do I want to find out now? Depends on God.
Hi, this is kind of a random question about being vegetarian because before the state was we would eat plants.
Sorry,
Before the state was we would eat plants.
before that?
Before our state was to eat plants, right?
Before the fall,
Yeah.
Adam had the privilege to just eat plants.
Yeah, to just eat
Yes.
plants. So now, does it? Kasi diba sometimes vegetarians, like people or doctors say na you don't get enough nutrients from just eating plants. Does that have anything to do with the fall? Like when sin came, parang hindi na ba sapat yung plants for us? Like like why do we need to eat meat if we were designed to eat plants? Something like that.
Right. So I would say that yes, there are nutrients when we eat meat. I'm not really studied pagdating dito sa field na yon, but I can say na meron tayong makukuha from eating meat. But also, kasi yes, before the fall, Adam and Eve were tasked to just eat plants. But after the flood, God said you can eat all animals. Sinabi niya doon. So we are allowed to eat meat ngayon.
But is there a bigger benefit from eating just plants because we were designed that way in the beginning?
I don't know if there are bigger benefits kasi the fact that God allowed it, I would say that it's also part of His preservation. So again, if you're really, kung mas alam niyo po yung mga yan, feel free to
Okay,
Yes.
may katanungan po dito. Please state your name.
So idagdag doon na hindi bawal kumain ng meat kasi we are allowed. Yes, Deacon Joy, may gusto ka ba idagdag?
Part of the before the flood, there were actually species of plants where you can get all the nutrition that you would need without eating meat. But just as animals can be extinct, flora can also go extinct.
By burger.
So after the flood, most of those plants that would have provided us with enough nutrition went extinct also. That's why we have to get those nutrients from meat.
I think nabasa ko din yun sa Answers in Genesis. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for adding.
May katanungan po dito. Please state your name and
Carlo po.
Carlo, yes, Carlo.
Taga,
Dalisay.
ano po?
Dalisay daw.
Mas ano po, question. Dun po sa us eating in glory.
Sorry?
In line po sa pagkain, us eating, tayo po, eating in glory. Is it out of desire to eat? And if it's out of desire to eat, so is there a sense of we are starving?
Sorry?
Parang meron po in glory, in heaven.
In heaven?
In heaven, yeah. Is it out of dahil gutom or out of ibang need or
Right.
reason for eating? So dahil pa may gutom, bakit? So in heaven, so if it's out of gutom, so meron bang sense of starvation na mangyayari? That's why they will be eating. Parang, or
So again, I think nagigets ko yung tema ng mga questions natin. Parang gusto nyo i-check ko na muna sa joke. Gusto nyo ba i-check ko? Joke. So, well, I mean, I'd love to know. I'd love to know. Pero, sige. So, ngayon, we eat kasi if we don't eat, we're gonna die. In heaven, we're not gonna die. However, I'm not sure whether we are asked to eat there. And if we are, I'm not sure if well, obviously, it's not for preservation because we will be glorified already. Right? So again, kaya nga, Revelation, when Revelation said that we will be granted to eat of the fruit of the tree of life, I interpret it in a way that it refers to our eternal life, salvation, glory with the Lord. I don't see it as a literal eating of the fruit. But again, hindi ko dinidiscount yung fact na baka nga, I don't know. Yun yung mystery doon. We don't know, and I guess it would be foolish to really be dogmatic on that's what we're gonna do, when in fact none of us have been there yet. So, pero thank you, nakagutom dun sa
Deacon Josh? Deacon Josh, ikaw muna.
Deacon John.
Then dito po.
Okay.
Baka may mas importanteng question. Baka may mas importanteng question dyan. But talking
Very flying na,
talking about eating in heaven, do we in turn go to the bathroom in heaven?
Do we go to the bathroom?
Yes. Yes. Is that part of us, our glorified bodies?
That's a great question. I'd like to know also if we're gonna. Your question is if we're gonna poop, right, in heaven. I don't know if we will be. I am in the. I think we won't. Yeah. I think. I'm not saying that's sure na sure ako. Again, if you want me to be sure, I'll get back with you if it's the Lord's time. I mean, I'm not gonna get back with you. Wait, I'm gonna get back with you pag nagkita-kita tayo doon, mga kapatid. Di ba? Pag dumating si Christ, uy, Anna, do you remember you asked me this question? I just... So, any questions that
Eating ka ba?
na masasagot ko ngayon?
Pas, ito po, hindi naman po about eating daw.
About eating kanina eh.
So, clarify ko po, hindi naman Brother Eli.
Yeah, Bas, isa lang. Ang katanungan ko po ay ganito. So, sorry, nawala ako. Balik ako dun pa sa dinosaur, more on the practical side. Sorry, yeah, it's one of the challenges of, parents having small kids. I mean, you look around talagang, what the world is teaching dinosaurs millions of years ago. So you'll present them with a book. 10% of the book speaks about dinosaurs millions of years ago. 90% tama naman. And then you have to tell kids na, the 10% is wrong. 90% is okay kasi tama siya scientifically. So medyo challenging talaga. So ang ano ko lang is, can you suggest yung mga children's book on dinosaurs that presents more on mga correct theology in terms of, what we believe? Kasi most of the books talaga that are, around, siguro a few lang talaga, depende sa curriculum ng estudyante, na magtuturo ng tama, same as with us on dinosaurs. But you go around na 90% naman tama, pero may dinosaur, medyo mali. So, it's a challenge really for us parents. So, may mga ganun bang books na children yung context that will, parang correct misconceptions about dinosaurs?
Right. So, thank you for your question, Ellie. I don't know yet of a good dinosaur book. A book about dinosaurs na very biblical ang approach, kasi I agree na very ang approach ngayon sa mga studies na to ay very liberal, hindi biblical. Wala akong alam ngayon, although maghahanap ako, so babalikan kita, pero ito suggestion ko, read mo yung kay Jason Lyle about dinosaurs, read mo rin yung kay DeYoung na Dinosaurs in the Bible, yung kanina, and then pag binasa mo siya, ikaw na mismo magturo sa kanila. So ganun din ginawa ko sa Sige po, meron pa po ba? We still have time.
Sorry, Vince.
Yung tanong ko lang pa.
Kasi po, yung questions natin from the previous lectures, okay lang po. Sige.
Di ba yung Noahic Covenant, still gumagana pa rin yung Noahic Covenant, di ba? And
part nun Noahic covenant, yung part ng covenant na binigay kay Noah nun is to go forth and multiply.
Yes.
Kasi napanood ko si Brother Eli, so hindi siya. Si Brother Eli Soriano. Well, natawa lang ako, nadaanan ko lang eh. Kasi tungkol sa parang isang lalaki merong multiple wives. So, ginamit niya yung Noahic covenant na parang to discredit yung having multiple wives. Di pinabasa yung Noahic covenant, sinabi nga na go forth and multiply. Tapos sabi ni Brother Eli, kay Noah binigay, di ba? Hindi naman sa'yo. So bakit ka nag-multiply? So anyway, yung tanong ko lang, so yung go forth and multiply still para sa atin pa rin naman to accomplish, di ba?
Definitely. Be fruitful and multiply still applies to us, that command. However, it doesn't mean be fruitful and multiply your wives.
Yun nga. So mali talaga si Brother Eli.
Yeah. So multiply in a sense na magpakarami tayo, magpatuloy ang creation ang ibig sabihin nun. Si Jengen.
Hello, Pas. Ayun, so yung point po kanina kasi na dinosaurs became extinct because of our sin. So yung questions ko pa, since we are living in this world na may sin pa rin, continuous pa po ba yung extinction or parang tumataas pa yung intensity ng extinction na yon? And ayun ba, as a Christians, are we here ba, for clarification lang pa, are we here ba to prevent yung mga extinction na yon?
Great question. Yes, definitely part yun ng good stewardship na called ang bawat human beings. Most importantly sa ating mga Christians, especially that we know that such covenant exists. So we are called to be good stewards. So yes, patuloy pa rin may extinction. Kaya nga kanina, Dr. Jason Lyle mentioned that there still are extinction programs. Tama ba? Prevention, parang something like that. May mga programs ngayon na nag-exist to prevent extinction. Yeah. So,
thank you, Pas.
Sige po, last question.
Yeah. Pas, I wanted to ask concerning food ulit. Whether either in the state of innocency ng man or in the state of glory, since death is not an issue, diba, in both cases, sa innocency, diba, there's no death. Before sin, no death. And then in glory, no death also. So, the purpose of food is not to sustain life, ba? Or is it purely enjoyment, just to enjoy? I assume we won't die if we don't eat. But
Right.
yeah, so
So obviously, Adam won't die if he did not eat of the green plants na binigay ng Panginoon. So I think connected siya dun sa sinasabi ni Paul that even in eating you can enjoy, you can glorify God. So that pasok yun doon even in the state of innocency, that when they eat, it's not more of kumbaga preserving their life, but more of enjoying the creation of God. So yeah. So if we translate that pagdating sa state of glory, again, we don't know yet. Meron pa? Sige.
As asking for from a friend, yung pag sa new heaven and new earth ba, yung mga extinct na hayop, iaano ng Panginoon? Makikita natin sila ulit?
Ano bang date ngayon? Sabi sa Isaiah that lions ay mamumuhay kasama ang mga. So merong hahanapin ko yung passage, but basically sinasabi doon there is peace doon sa new heaven and new earth, that even ang ginamit ng prophet na images were animals that obviously would attack one another, and yet in that passage it says that they are at peace with one another. So it could be that baka meron, but again, I don't know if there will be animals during that time. Kasi even that passage can also be symbolism of the peace we have when we get to the new heaven and new earth. Oh, last, sige. Yes.
You wanna ask?
Okay. So with Adam and Eve, and their covenant of works, the foundation of the covenant of works was the moral law. The covenant of works was to be fruitful and multiply. The moral law, or the implication of the moral law with the commandment against adultery, is against incestuous relationships. How do we reconcile both the covenant of works saying to be fruitful and multiply, but that being predicated on the moral law which says not to commit incest? If you get the implications of what I'm saying.
Right. So basically, incestuous relationship obviously were allowed in the beginning of creation. I mean, in fact, creation, Adam and Eve will not be able to multiply unless there will be relationship within their family. But obviously, we see the declension of life, and we see how the relationships in the Bible ay hirap pala Tagalog, English pala dapat, ano? So we see even in the time of Abraham, there was in a sense not that incestuous. So for example, Isaac married Rebecca. Rebecca was from the line of Haran, but we can say that they are still part of one family. And then when nations progressed, we see even in the Mosaic covenant, it's been prohibited already in the Mosaic law. So we see that prior to it, it was allowed just so that humanity will multiply. However, when the Mosaic law or Mosaic covenant was given, obviously it was contrasted to the very sinful life of the Canaanites because they have been so incestuous. In fact, they were so barbaric. Hence, the laws in the Mosaic covenant were patterned in a way that would separate them from the licentiousness of the rest of the Canaanites. So obviously, in the Mosaic covenant, it's clear there that it should not happen anymore moving forward. So yes, in order for the be fruitful and multiply to happen in Adam's time, in Noah's time, they must marry one another. You know, probably a brother and a sister may have married during that time, and obviously nothing wrong with the genetics. But obviously after the flood, or even after Abraham, there have been genetic problems if they marry within the family. So did I answer your question?
So I guess that implies that morally that has to be positive.
So the be fruitful and multiply is not part of the Decalogue moral law 10 commandments. It was a positive law, right? So it's not like do not murder, do not steal. These laws are part of the moral law, but the be fruitful and multiply is a positive law in the covenant of works. Just like when God said to Adam that that he shall not eat of the fruit of the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that was a positive law. Be fruitful and multiply in the Noahic covenant is a positive law, and a positive law that still perpetuates up until today. Sorry?
Check. I meant the law, a part of the moral law regarding adultery. So the Westminster Catechism would say that thou shalt not commit adultery implies no incestuous relationships. So that is either taken naturally, which means it abides
Right.
it's, it's transcendent or it's to some extent positive. Like how do you make that distinction?
So the be fruitful and multiply is a positive law in the covenant of works and in the Noahic covenant, but the prohibition to be incestuous, to commit adultery, of course, that's a part of the moral law. But the command to multiply, that's not part of the moral law. That's a positive law. Thou shalt not commit adultery, any sexual sin, even in the Westminster, it's even in the Baptist Catechism, it says that it also includes incestuous relationships. Yes, that is in the seventh commandment as well. But again, the world during that time in Adam and Noah, they won't be able to multiply unless even their own family members would have relationships with one another. So obviously, God allowed that during that time. Now, no. Because it's under the seventh commandment, incestuous relationships. So it's a violation of the moral law if that happens today. That's really separate from be fruitful and multiply. Be fruitful and multiply, you go ahead and make children, not with your brothers and sisters, right? So that's really separate from being in an incestuous relationship. That's a violation of the moral law.
I agree with
So how do you distinguish again be fruitful and multiply versus an incestuous relationship? Like what Adam and his line would have done. Let's say the fall didn't happen, and they had to marry their own sisters and brothers.
Right.
How would that be different from incestuous relationships in after the law was given?
So be fruitful and multiply is not a command to be in an incestuous relationship.
Yes.
When God said, "Oh, be fruitful and multiply," and that command still perpetuates up until now, it doesn't translate to, "Oh, go ahead and be in an incestuous relationship with your brother, with your mother, with your father, do it." No, it's a command to really have children. And of course, presupposing that you would be married to not your next of kin, not to your brother or not to your sister. So that's what be fruitful and multiply meant. Now, being in an incestuous relationship, especially in our context, especially as it is now defined in the Mosaic Covenant, it's part of the seventh commandment. Right? Yung committing adultery, all sexual sins fall under the seventh commandment. Hence, in the Westminster Catechism, and also in the Baptist Catechism, they describe the seventh commandment. It includes the incestuous relationships. Now, in the time of Adam, God allowed it, obviously, because mankind will not be able to multiply unless they would marry one another in their own family, among their family members. So, would it be sinful? Probably that time it was a necessity in order for mankind to multiply. Is it sinful now to have an incestuous relationship? Definitely. I think nalilito ka dun sa be fruitful and multiply, nakikita mo siya na very sinful siya kagad ngayon. Pero commanded kasi tayo na magpakarami tayo. Hindi siya command na be in an incestuous relationship in order for you to multiply.
But there wouldn't have been any other choice.
Exactly. It was a necessity during that time.
Yes, I understand that part. But what I don't understand is how. So then we were fated. Obviously, Adam. We know that Adam and Eve fell. But if they didn't, let's just say they didn't eat along the lines, we would have fallen eventually. Through a sin, even if we through that sin of incestuous relationship, because if it's a moral law, then it would have. That's what I think. That's what I'm having a hard time understanding.
Right.
If it's a moral law, yeah, it would have always been wrong. So we would have fallen into sin.
Right. So I understand. However, it was a necessity during that time. That's why now it's not, right? Kasi we can definitely multiply without having incestuous relationships. But during that time, it was a necessity. In fact, it was a command of God to multiply, and the only way for them to obey the command is to be married to their family members. Yun lang. Wala nang iba eh. Kasi you can't find anyone present on earth. So last question, sorry, kasi we're already...
Verse that I think can help. In just saying, I won't explain it, but I think Romans 5 verses 12 to 14 can help. You could probably capitalize it on it next time, pass. But therefore, just as sin came into the world through one man, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because all sinned. For sin indeed was in the world because the law was given, but sin is not counted where there is no law. Yet death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over those whose sinning was not like the transgression of Adam, who was a type of the one who was to come. I remember asking a similar question to another pastor, and he referred to this passage. And so that might help.
Sorry, nalito lang ako. I think the verse tells us that Adam sinned, and the counterpart of Adam's sin is the work of Christ. I think that's what Romans 5 is telling us. Pero whether, I think ang problem nila Ana is that they know kasi, we know that the moral law is eternal, it perpetuates, it is not bound by time, and the fact that incestuous relationships as per the Westminster Catechism falls under the seventh violation. So di ba sabihin, nag-violate si Adam and Eve? I don't think so, because it was a command of God for them to multiply, and the only way for them to multiply is to be married to their family members. So, okay, guys, I have to stop kasi, sorry, meron tayong covenanting. Yes, thank you. Okay? You can approach me later if you have more questions. I can ask Adam afterwards if you want me to check. Sige.